Well, how about that, eh? So I was minding my own business, just trying to make progress on this thing, mostly just doing a whole bunch of wiring inside of it. And one night, I was just scrolling around on eBay, kind of looking for a Gen 3 or 18 to 23 intake manifold, because this car dynoed half decent for NA, and I know that it's got the Gen 1 intake, which has got to be hurting the situation. So I was like, man, wonder how it would do with the Gen 3 intake. And look what I found, eh? I found a Gen 4 intake with 2 throttle bodies on it. Of course, it got banged in shipping, so we'll see if the epoxy keeps that thing alive. So I have a dual throttle body intake. And I want to see how it compares to a Gen 1 intake with an aftermarket throttle body. Cool. So that's like, well, that's easy, sure, yeah. Well, not really. Some say it won't fit right here very good, but all I can see so far, it looks fine. I might have to get a Gen 3 water neck. Not too worried about these actuators. I'll delete those and grind that bracket off the back so I can put an intake cover on it. But dual throttle bodies might be hard to do for almost anybody with a stock ECU. By hard, I mean almost impossible. What Dominator ECU in my car has dual throttle body control options? So it doesn't have any support for these throttle bodies, these being the 2024. But it does have support for the 17 and the 14 throttle bodies, and I put this throttle body here on my 2014, and though it made a wrench light, it plugged in and the throttle activated full throttle and back to idle. So I don't think Holley's that picky about it. So I'm going to ID it as a 2014 throttle body in Holley and see if it'll run 2 of them. Why not, right? And if it does, we'll figure out how to make it all work. To me, it seems like I might pick up 20 or 30 horsepower even. That might be pushing it, but the dyno will tell us. All right, first problem. Gen 1 fuel rail will not clear the wide area of the there, and it's not that close. I think it's kind of getting there everywhere else. It might drop, but this area is not even close. So I do wonder if it'll fit backwards, but it's kind of messing everything up. But it might. Obviously it won't fit with the actuators there, but I'm going to delete them yet. Interesting. So obviously the fuel rail for a Gen 4, and I assume a 3 too, it has more outlets because we have a takeoff on this side to go to feed the direct injection pump for that whole system. So I think I have aftermarket fuel rails here, but man, I'm not sure I'm into that plumbing mess, but we'll consider it. We did our first quick trial fit, and that thermostat housing was definitely not going to clear. I think we're going to have some other issues in here. Turn the thermostat clamp over, shifted it over a bit, trimmed a few pieces off the back for the corner just for my wiring. That wouldn't be required, it's just how I got it wired, and I don't really care about the plastic on the back corner of the intake, so And I cut this little piece off, which is smoking hot. Of that, you can easily buy the thermostat housing that's the right height. A Gen 3 one would fix that clearance problem, but I don't think it's going to fix this clearance problem. So I might need a Gen 4, because this here is really close. So we'll see if that's going to fit, but I'm just going to do this right now because I didn't even have to take it off. I just use the old, whatever the heck you call this apparatus, but it's a good little cutter. So we trimmed that. I trimmed some back corners off the intake. Once again, this was just for the way I laid my wiring out, and I'm not using these, so that's good. And we will see if it will sit. I forgot that on my fuel rails, I'm using these shorter injectors, and this fuel rail was designed for the tall injectors on the Gen 1, so I cut these down. So I'm trying to push this Gen 1 fuel rail really low because I had these cut. So I feel like I'm going to need a fuel rail probably. So I'm going to see what my aftermarket one looks like, but we'll see how much a Gen 4 rail actually costs. Make our plans from there. Okay, so it clears here like it's actually made to. Obviously I cut that back, so now that clears. Everything clears there. It's actually bolted down flush right now, but this throttle body does not want to play nice with that coolant tube. I just bought that too. So I think that I gotta try to find if I can buy a Gen 4 coolant tube and see what's different about it. But even if it just kicks back a hair, everything would clear there, because it just has to kick back enough to go back into that space right there, and then the throttle body would clear. Otherwise, yeah, I think like I'm probably hitting something right there because I have the wrong bolt put there. It's not supposed to be a stud there, or if there is, there shouldn't be now. But yeah, this is the Foxbody fitment on the back, so take that for what it applies to. If that's you, cool. But overall, I think it's gonna work. I'm gonna look for that coolant outlet, and I'm gonna look for fuel rail solutions. And I kind of have a hunch they're both gonna come from a 2024 Mustang. We'll see. So in making clearance for this pipe that stands up here and hits my second throttle body, we have a pipe. It has a T coming the direction of my finger, and then one going straight up. That's the return from the heater core. We're going to block the top of it, which is how the S650s do it, the Coyote Gen 4s, and we just tee that heater core hose from the heater core. We'll take this out and we'll just tee it straight back in, because the hose that normally is hooked up over here, it just heads over back as a expansion tank return. So I believe the heater core hose is a return. Of course, there's always coolant and everything. Why is there always coolant everywhere? And yeah, so I'm going to tee in this hose here, return the heater core to that hose, and I'll have clearance for my throttle body. Now the weird part is, you can just buy a little piece that looks very much like this. I've already cut it off. For an S650, 2024 Mustang. I just bought this piece from Dorman, just in doing the engine swap here. And I was really lazy, and I found that an M12 riv nut, I put a little silicone on it before I expanded it, but it actually bulges. Focus, buddy. It actually bulges the edge of the steel when I cramp that riv nut in there. And I put some silicone around the riv nut before I riveted it. So I think that's going to work. I got a nice little bolt, shortened bolt to put in there with a flange nut head. I'll use it as a bleeder when I need to. And I've plugged the hole. And I will put a T in and I'll have room. All right, so we have 2 throttle bodies. Now everything's clearing. It's all tight, but everything fits. And I don't have all the coolant plumbed yet, but it has the room to do so. So now I got to deal with, well, air ducting is going to be interesting. I still got to deal with fuel rails. But my current concern is the top of that throttle body going to hit my hood? We'll find out. So we put a grease goober right there and see if the hood has something to say. Let's say maybe really close. No, it should be behind that rib. It's up in here. Doesn't touch. Clears. Good enough. All right, so we're waiting on some parts to make the harness for the dual throttle body, but I was able to make the stock Gen 1 fuel rail clear by using some hats, some injector extension hats when you use short injectors, and then use them with the stock style long injector. And I had to do, can't see it very well, sorry. There's a little fin down there, a little plastic fin. I carved it off just to see if I can get in there. Yeah, anyways. But other than that, still working on a few details, but it's gonna run. Let's have some ideas on the dyno. I wonder if Holley will let me run just one throttle body. Not as a long term, but as a curiosity as to how good this intake is just by design, as far as runner length and plenum volume and taper and all that things, and then how much it helps to have 2 throttle bodies. Because we've done on the older stuff, we found so little power in bigger throttle bodies. So how come 2 is good, or is 2 just cool? You know, it's cool, but I'd be curious how much of the intake's design itself adds the power and how much of the 2 throttle bodies adds the power. So we'll try it. I think we'll be able to run one, and I mean, obviously when you unplug them, they rest in a slightly open position, but should be pretty much the hardest part, maybe to get it to idle down enough to do the dyno run. But anyways, that'll be fun. We're still dealing with waiting for parts now for the dual throttle bodies. I did test run it, and these 2024 throttle bodies, didn't test run, I test programmed or calibrated it. They don't ID the same as a 15 to 17 for the Holley, or a 14, the early ones. Although the pinout's exactly the same, they actually only use 5 of the 6 pins, and the force motors work the same, but the throttle position sensors aren't the same. So I am going to do it with the 14 throttle body. I have one more ordered. I had this one around. It's an OEM one, and I use it to do all my testing. So the Holley does like those and does work with those. And I've just been mocking up some plumbing here. I ordered some ducting to make the cold air intake. Gonna have to try to make something somewhat symmetrical. Got a radiator hose over here. I've ordered a different coolant reservoir. This is still left over from an old build, but it works, so I used it till now. But I got one I think that'll fit more in the corner over there, and then I can make some sort of air filter in this space. And in this space, though I am contemplating just going right through the fender and getting rid of the cooling system reservoir, or going lower, going down, not cooling system, washer jug, going lower below it, and just putting the air filter in the inner fender, but that doesn't make very good service. So, but this space here is going to be freed up over there, so I might as well put an air filter in there somewhere. Yeah, so making headway. We'll be running pretty soon with this once the parts all show up. I'm dealing with some fuel rail fasteners that I didn't have the right ones for, and should be good to go here pretty quick. This is the drive-by wire harness that I made. It's got a shield inside of it, so yeah, I'm glad it all pin out tested good. So we'll keep putting that car together, and there it is. Runs on 2 throttle bodies. Might be the first gen Coyote running on a 4th gen intake. I did have to use 1st gen throttle bodies. And I had to cut one off right in here. They would hit each other. The throttle bodies look very similar, but they are slightly different, and the ends aren't as long over there. They're just a little lower profile.